Hello, and welcome to this podcast presented by LexisNexis. Because the law is everywhere, at the heart of our lives and our discussions, this series brought to you by LexisNexis and guests will cover current issues that impact us daily. I am joined today by Caroline Bérubé, author of the French and English versions of the book Doing Business in China, published by LexisNexis Canada. Caroline Bérubé is the managing partner of HJM Asia Law, a boutique law firm with offices in China and Singapore. She is admitted to practice in New York and Singapore, holds a BCL civil law and an LLB common law from McGill University in Montreal, Canada, and studied at the National University of Singapore with a focus on Chinese law in 1998/1999. Caroline focuses on M&A cross-border transactions, commercial law and intellectual property matters, licensing and technology transfers, areas in which she has developed a respected expertise and understanding of the challenges and advantages of most Asian jurisdictions. Caroline advises clients in various industries, including manufacturing, technology, entertainment, e-commerce, luxury industry, agriculture, trading, and services. Welcome, Caroline, and thank you for joining me today as we celebrate International Women's Day this March.
Thank you so much, Monica, for inviting me to discuss with you today.
Thank you. I'd like to start off by asking you a little bit more about why you joined the legal profession.
That's a great question. Why did I choose the legal profession? First, I chose it because I thought going to law school was going to be a great foundation for whatever I was going to do after. So I thought if I do law, I could decide to go to business. In fact, I did think I would do an MBA eventually and I would go to the business world. I ended up in the business world, but without an MBA for a different reason, which I'll explain a bit later. But so when I went to law school, I'm like, listen, if I do law school, I'm going to learn critical thinking, how to analyze, speed reading, lots of way to draft and write. So I thought if I decide to go to law school, I could go business world, I could stay in private practice, I could go in-house, I could go maybe in journalism, I could decide to go in politics. So I thought it was a really good option to open door, and it was giving me option. And I always believe in having option. I don't like to be stuck in a situation, so I prefer to have option. And I thought law school was going to be a great option to give me different choice in my career. So that's the reason I decided to go to law school.
So in your current role, do you have a woman leader as a mentor, or were there any specific women who inspired you?
Yeah, I do have a few. So when I moved to Asia, I studied, as you mentioned earlier, and there was a big financial crisis in 1999, in Asia. It was pretty bad. But I still decided to stay in Asia to look for a job. And I went to Alliance Française because they were offering different art piece and exhibition and French play. So I thought I'll go because I was missing a little bit the French aspect of my life in Quebec. So I tried to check and try to find out. And it was this woman who was in charge of a law firm in Singapore, French speaking. And I called her and said, I really would like to have a job and I'm willing to work for a very low salary at first to prove how hardworking and smart I am. And she was kind enough to give me a great opportunity. But what I learned from her was that she really created a great niche for her legal industry in Singapore. So she was representing a lot of French clients. And she also had a niche, not only French clients, but also in the luxurious field. So doing a lot of IP to protect their brand, etc. I'm still in touch with her. This is now more than 25 years ago. And she's still super driven. She's a mother of two, very, very smart, giving her heart and soul to the legal profession, but also as an individual mentoring people that she meets. So she's been a great source of inspiration for me.
So I know you are a mentor for other women in the legal industry. What are some of the important things that you advise them about?
It's a great question, Monica. Thank you. I believe that, I always say to these young ladies, and I also teach, and one of the reasons I teach most students in law school are female students. And I just think that as a teacher, if they can see another woman who is teaching, but also in private practice and a mother of 3 kids, like, it could inspire them to see that it is possible to do all these things, which sometimes seems a bit overwhelming when you start your career as a lawyer. So I always tell them that they do need to be passionate. If you're not passionate, it's a very challenging job because it requires a lot of time, energy, and dedication, and it's a non-stop job, to be realistic. So I always tell them that you do need to be really passionate. You have to be open-minded as well. So sometimes you do think that you're going to end up doing, like, for example, in my case, I wanted to do M&A work. So when I joined a firm, I thought like I'm going to do M&A work in Asia, focus on Chinese law. Well, it took me 4 or 5 years to finally get to that role because, well, as I mentioned, there was a financial crisis, then there was a tech bubble. So the M&A industry was very, very slow. And as you all know, if you're in private practice, billable hours are really, really important. So if you're not busy because there's no deal, your billable hours are low. So in my case, for example, like there was the arbitration team was extremely busy. So I went to see the M&A partner and I said, listen, I really do want to work. And this, I know like the market is very tight. Can I do something else? And then he said, well, arbitration team is busy. They need your help. Are you happy to do it? I'm like, absolutely. So like within a few hours, I changed team, changed desk and moved to the arbitration team. This kept me busy for 2 years. Extremely busy, no weekend, working really hard. And then along the line as well, like one Monday morning, they say, well, for this big ICC arbitration case, we need to have someone to go to Thailand. I raised my hand and I said, listen, I'll go. And I ended up staying like months and months. So, like you really have to be open-minded. And sometimes it's not always the journey that you expect. But I believe whatever you end up doing is a good learning experience and it's going to be useful to what you will eventually do. So for me, like, it was a great opportunity to learn, to be based in another country at that time. So not only Singapore, but Thailand, to learn how the business culture works there. My billable target was amazingly high. I worked with a huge team on arbitration. I never did arbitration after these few big cases, but honestly, still now as an M&A lawyer, I feel like, like whatever I learned was very useful to create bundle, to interview witness, to collect evidence, to deal with arbitrator, the process of ICC arbitration. So all these tools make me, I feel, a better M&A lawyer. So never give up, but always remain open-minded. Keep your goal of what you really want to do, but try to take advantage of the opportunities that are offered to you, even if sometimes it's not what you expected. But the passion is also important.
So during your long and impressive career, have you made any mistakes along the way? And if so, what did you learn from them?
I did a lot of mistakes and I still do many mistakes. No one is perfect, but I would say I feel I was very, very naive. I trust people very quickly, colleagues or partner or, people I was negotiating with on the other side. So I was relying on words because in my world, like words and action match. But I realized, unfortunately, that words and action do not always match. So this made a few a tough situation because I got personally disappointed. I'm like, oh, how can I have trusted these people and I should have not trusted them on that deal, etc. So this is something that I learned, trust people based on their action, not on their words. Especially And then another thing that I learned, trust your gut feeling. Every time that my gut feeling was telling me something, and I run a law firm. So I became an entrepreneur and I had a few startups, which I sold, etc. But every time that my gut feeling was telling me something and I'm like, rationally, it doesn't make sense. I shouldn't rely on my gut feeling. It's, I should rely on what is right in writing, etc. And then eventually months after I realized my gut feeling was right and I should have followed it. So trusting your gut feeling is really important, even if sometimes it seems that it doesn't make sense. There's a reason your gut feeling is telling you. And I feel as you get older, unfortunately, you start to trust it more and more. And I wish I had trusted it more even when I was younger. So always keep in mind, for me, like my mantra most of the morning is like, like trust action, not word, and trust your gut feeling.
That's some good advice. That actually leads me to my next question. You mentioned a lot of the students you teach are young women. Do you have any advice for them or for women in general who are thinking about entering the legal profession?
Yeah, I do believe in, like, in law school. So I teach at Sorbonne, Assas, and I also teach at Bocconi University in Milan. And there's a lot of students who are female. And I do hope that, like the percentage that we see in law school will continue to grow, and will also grow in the partnership level in law firm, because at the moment it's not the case, unfortunately. So I tell them that, listen, and it's funny, a lady had told me many years ago, she said, Caroline, you cannot have it all at the same time. And I was like, of course I can have it all at the same time. I can have like great career, great family, great health, great everything. And I was like, this is so negative that we cannot have everything at the same time. And eventually, I guess with a bit of wisdom in a few years, I understood that what she meant. And yes, like, sometimes we want it all, especially when you were young, you believe it's possible. And a lot of time, like everything will be coming all together, which is great. But sometimes, like, everything will go super well career-wise, but, because we work so hard, our health is not that great, or because we work so hard, the relationship we want is not as great because we don't have time to spend on the relationship. Or as a mother, like you work really hard as well, and then you come back and you're a bit impatient. So it's like, oh my God, I was so impatient with my kids, and I should have not said that, or I should have been like, more open about this when they discuss with me. So I believe that, again, if you're passionate about what you do as a career, because the law profession requires, like, it's not a 9-to-4 job. That's the reality. And if you're passionate, you think about it all the time because you get excited. For me, I wake up and I'm really excited to check my email and what happened, because a lot of our clients are overseas. So they're either in Europe or North America. So when I woke up Asia time, like, like I get all excited about emails. So it means like more work, but I find it exciting, and like new project, new industry, clients from different part of the world. So I keep learning. So I find it challenging and fun, but it's possible to do this if you're passionate. So I feel like, like if you're passionate, carry on. But the day that you're no longer passionate about what you do, I feel it's good to change as well. Like it's just like, and it's being honest with ourselves that, listen, I don't have the same fire than I used to have. So it's better to leave at this point. For me, like, I've been a lawyer since 1999, and I still really love what I do. Even if it's demanding, I just find like it's a constant learning curve. So it keeps me challenged intellectually, and I keep learning. So I suggest to young women, like, to follow their passions. And when I say, like, stay in private practice, if you're passionate about it, if stay or choose like, like IP work or commercial work or litigation or arbitration, find a topic or an industry that will excite you and will thrill you intellectually, that you'll want to learn and you want to push yourself. So I think it's important to listen to yourself. And sometimes it also means take a step back and it's like, like, listen, I thought that I love M&A work, but I do not love it so much anymore. Or I want to try something else. So I think it's important to be passionate, find your passion, and also try different things. Like, like as a young lawyer, like, like I think if you work in a big law firm, and I was lucky enough to work in a big English firm, I tried different groups and different teams, different industries. So because of this, like I had the exposure and the visibility to learn. So I think it's important as a young lawyer to try different things. So to choose something that will really make you happy. But yeah, like I have also to be realistic, like combining private practice, personal life, sports does require a lot of discipline, perseverance, and passion. But I think it's definitely worth the journey.
So I actually just want to talk a bit more about your book, Doing Business in China. I don't know where you find time to write between 3 children and practicing law and teaching, but what inspired you to write your book, Doing Business in China?
Thank you for the question, Monica. So I'm an entrepreneur by heart, so, and I feel like being trained as a lawyer has been really useful in my entrepreneurship journey. And I feel like, a lot of lawyers, like, when we ask them questions, like, like they often come back with a lot of long answers. And being an entrepreneur myself, having been brought up in an entrepreneurship mindset, my brother's an entrepreneur, is also in Asia. Like when you're an entrepreneur, you do have a question and you want to have someone who will answer your question in a very simple way, demystifying the legal language. So that's why I decided to write this book in an unusual format. As you have read the book, like it's a lot of questions that a lot of entrepreneur had. And I just thought, like, like by writing this book and making it like easy to read, or I think it's easy to read anyway, for entrepreneur, like, it would be encouraging for them to see what is possible to do in China. Because a lot of time, like, doing business in China is an exciting journey. You want to go to China either to reduce your costs from a business perspective or to tap on a new market. But it's also like a daunting market, like it's far away from Canada, for example. It's another culture. It's another language. The way to do business is quite different. So you kind of lose all the thing that you knew about doing business in North America or Europe. So I thought by writing a book like this, it was allowing entrepreneurs to understand how to do business in China, hopefully encouraging them and demystifying how to do business in China, making it simple and for them to understand and see how they can do it in practical ways. So the book is very, very practical. Practical questions, practical answers, mostly dedicated to entrepreneur and other legal advisor who have clients who want to go to Asia. So that's the reason I wrote this book. I just wanted to have more successful companies coming to Asia and China. And for that, I thought to be successful, they need to understand the market. And by writing a book, which is very practical, I thought it would make it easier for them. So that was the rationale behind it.
And your book is very interesting in that you wrote it in both French and English. So what inspired you to do both formats like that?
So I would say, like, I wanted two languages first because I'm very proud to be French Canadian. I think it has been serving me very well to speak two languages. For example, when I moved to China, like I went to see each French-speaking consulate, Belgium, Switzerland, France, and of course the Canadian one, and say, listen, if you have clients who want to do business in South China, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, which was the Silicon Valley of China then, like, I'm happy I can speak French with them and it's going to make it easier for everyone. So I thought there was a good market. And again, we're talking about like, like when I moved to Asia, like this is late 90s. So speaking English, speaking Chinese was not the norm then. So that's why I thought, like, if I do the book in two languages, it's going to be useful for French-speaking countries and also like to English speakers.
Yes, I think they're both very helpful to have it in both languages, especially with your French background. That's all the time we have for today. Caroline, I'd like to thank you for speaking with us and taking the time to speak to our listeners. And we're hoping we hear more from you as we celebrate International Women's Day coming up in March.
Thank you so much, Monica. And if anyone has any question, I'll be happy you can reach out and Monica will have my details.
Thank you.